Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good to see you. Let's wait a bit for more people to join the session.
Tjena Linnea och Peter, hej.
Tjenare David. Peter är här.
Hej, hej.
Hey buddy.
Hey, jag heter Liane and I'm a native English speaker, so I'm learning Swedish.
Oh, wow.
Hey, I'm at Ängsbacka.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
That is nice. It's such a difficult language, Swedish.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's almost as hard as Dutch.
Yeah, it probably.
I think it's really beautiful. I love the melody of it.
Yeah.
And it's very close to Dutch and German. So I've been learning a little Dutch lately too, and it's all such a close family.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
There are some words that are similar.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get confused if you listen to a Dutch person, because then it's like you can pick up every 10th word or something, and then you just think you know what's going on, but really you don't.
No, exactly that. All right, more people are joining. Let's wait for a few more minutes before we start. Yeah, where are you all joining us from today? Sweden, of course. I see Jonathan.
Michael from the USA here on the Pacific Coast.
Good morning to you, Michael. All right. More.
But I will say in our northern climb, just below the Canadian border, we have dandelions blooming for the first time yesterday.
Wow.
That's how far. It's relatively warm here, even though we're next to Canada.
Is it extremely warm as well?
No, it's in the 40s and a little bit into the 50 Fahrenheit.
Okay.
We don't get dandelions here until around April or so.
Yeah, in Sweden. And you,
All right.
know the guy around? Do you know the guy around the world in 80 plants? I'm trying to think of his name. Lives on I think Norway on the Arctic Circle. And he grows 2,000 kinds of perennial vegetables on his place. So one of the most diverse plant places in that part of the Northern Hemisphere. So you should check him out. I can't think of his name right now.
Stephen Barstow.
Probably. I do have the book, but I think it's in the other room.
Can you maybe share that information in the chat? I think more people are interested in that. All right, as more people are probably joining, I am going to start the session for tonight. So I will start to share my screen with you. I hope you are able to see it. Please let me know if you are not able to see it. I think it's okay, right? Well, welcome again to this already second session of the Fireside Chat. Unfortunately, tonight it's without John D. Liu because he had an other important meeting he needed to attend. So we are really sorry about that. But we do have the camp manager of Camp Humble Habitat, David Ruxendahl, joining us. So very exciting. Just some house rules before we start. I would love to ask you to please hold your question until after David's presentation. And if you do have a question, I would like to ask you to raise your hand. There is a reaction button in Zoom. It's on the bottom of the window, and you can click on raise your hand. And if you do not feel comfortable, you're always welcome to ask your question in the chat as well. Yeah, this session will last for 1 hour, and we will see if we need some more time for an open discussion. But if you need to leave after 1 hour, you're able to leave as well. And now I have a really short poll, because we would love to get a better understanding of which weekday would be your preference for this fireside chat session. So I created this little poll, and I'm going to share it with you. There will be a pop-up in your screen, and you can share which weekday you prefer for this fireside chat session to happen. And if you do not have a preference, you can also say no preference. And if you have multiple preferences, you can also click on multiple days. So I'm launching it now, and I give you 30 seconds to answer. There you go. This is already very interesting to see the preference of everyone. All right, 5 more seconds, and then I'm going to end the poll. Yes. All right, thanks everyone for filling this out. I'm quickly going to download the results because it's very valuable to us. I'm not sure if you're probably not going to see that. Okay. Thank you. Let me see. Yes. All right. I'm back. And I would love to share this video with you that John created for us for this fireside chat particularly. So let's enjoy this beautiful introduction from John.
Hello. Welcome to the Fireside Chat. Actually, today I'm along a stream near the Point Reyes seashore in Marin County in California. Today we're going to hear from the Camp Humble Habitat in Sweden. I think it's extremely interesting what they're doing, and it shows that people all over the world are interested in restoring ecological function. And I hope you will enjoy listening to them and will consider what you can do to restore ecological function in your landscapes and in your communities. And we need to understand that we're at a turning point in human history where science tells us that there are predictable catastrophic outcomes if we don't reverse some of the impacts that human beings have had on various parts of the ecosystem. And what I've learned, and the reason that the ecosystem restoration camps has emerged, is because together we can restore soil fertility. We can bring back the habitat for microbial and fungal communities in the soil. We can infiltrate and retain moisture in the ground, which lowers the surface temperatures and alters the evaporation rates and increases respiration, the creation of oxygen, and cools the planet. And we can protect and encourage biodiversity. So I hope you'll all consider joining existing camps or creating new camps and working with your friends and your family and people that you've never known before, because we all have the same interest. We're facing the same consequences if we don't act now. So we have a window of opportunity, and I hope that you'll consider what you can do. I'd also like to tell those who are interested that there are a number of new developments in media where we'll be able to communicate with all the camps around the world and with people all over the world to share what's going on. And to do this, we want to help all those who are interested to study how to make videos and how to share what's going on in your biomes so that we can all use collaborative inquiry for collective intelligence. And we can share in our problem solving, share in our understanding about natural ecological systems, and put all of our minds together to take care of this and act as a species on a planetary scale. I'm John Liu, and I'm so glad that you're here today. And I hope you'll enjoy the conversation. I'm sure that Inga and the wonderful camp, Humble Habitat in Sweden, will impress you and inspire you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much for this video. I also saw that you were able to join us anyways. Yeah, please reach out to John if you want to. These are his contact details. And I would love to share some news with you about camp experiences and courses that are coming up this month or early next month. And upcoming Saturday, Camp Coyote in California is planning on a winter action day where together you will be planting trees and sowing seeds for the next season. Just for you to know, if you are interested in these camp experiences / courses, you can always go to our website, ecosystemrestorationcamps.org, and we have more detailed information on our courses and event page. So the next camp experience will be in Italy at Camp Rocchia Viva, and they're organizing a permaculture design course, and it's also about regenerating body and soul, and it's from the 23rd until the 8th of March. And it is for Italian speaking only. And then Camp Altiplano in Spain is hosting an ecosystem restoration course, and it's from the 3rd until the 11th of March. And Camp Human Nature in Uganda is welcoming volunteers from the 4th until the 31st of March. So if you're interested, you can contact Ronald, the camp manager, to see when an experience is possible for you. And Camp Farm of the Future in Brazil is hosting a camp experience from the 11th until the 16th of March. So if you're interested, don't forget to go to our website. Then some exciting camp news. Camp Chacaya in Bolivia planted cactuses around the native and endangered lock tree. And the cactuses are planted to protect the tree from bushfires. They did an experiment on it last year and it was a success, so they are going with it again. Then Camp Mombasa Mangroves is working on a larger vision. Currently, Camp Mombasa Mangroves is restoring the Tudor Creek, which is a 1,400 hectare forest, but the camp manager had a bigger vision, and his goal is now to plant 1 billion trees in Kenya, and therefore expanding the mangrove forest. So we are really excited for the potential impact. And then Camp Mainsprings in Tanzania has launched the East African Regenerative Network to help spread regenerative agriculture methods throughout East Africa. And they are helping especially local farmers with knowledge, funding, and organizational capacity to implement regenerative methods. So very, very well done. And then Camp Wheatstale Regeneration in South Africa is a regeneration farm. And he's already working on 4,000 hectares, but is now planning on expanding with another 3,850 hectares. But he's still looking for investors. So if you are interested in some way to fund impact, then you can always reach out to me via my email address, inge@ecosystemrestorationcamps.org. All right, and now we go over to our main guest for tonight, Camp Humble Habitat. It's a 13-hectare plot, and it's exploited by mining, and they are already restoring it due to reforestation, gardening, biochar production, soil building, natural building. And I am very happy to show this beautiful video where you get a better idea of what they are doing and what it looks like. sorry for the abrupt ending, but what a beautiful, beautiful video. And I think everyone feels inspired to come and join you, David. But for now, I will give you the room and share your story and your project with us.
Thank you, Inge. Hello, everyone. This is me, David, over here, sitting in my tiny house. Now it is February, and today, for the first time since November last year, we've got enough sun to charge our battery bank full. We're on an off-grid 13-hectare piece of farmland, you could say, but it's been clear-cut about 10 years ago, so we're growing up together with our young forest here. And I would like to share with you the journey. How did we get here? And why are we doing what we're doing? So I will share my screen with you. And again, let us know if it's not working. Can I see some nods or thumbs up if everything's looking good?
It's working, thanks.
Great. So this has been about a 10-year journey all in all. And it started with me being a computer nerd. I sat about 15 years in front of screens like this, helping people with IT problems, websites, all kinds of stuff. I've been doing that since I was 13. And this is the story of how I transitioned from the super nerd to the Superman. And it's all based in permaculture principles. So permaculture is something that is deeply intrinsic to everything I do in my life. And this is the definition, as I would define it myself, of permaculture. Let me see, I can't find my mouse here. Well, one second. So it's about learning from nature and taking the lessons we learn from nature and using them to as design tools to understand nature better and design systems that work in the long run, here and now, and as sustainable as possible given the circumstances of where you are, to paraphrase. And these are the different principles of permaculture. There's a couple different versions of this. I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with these, so I won't go into them too much. But there's approximately 12 permaculture principles, and they're very simple. They make a lot of sense. And after learning a lot about permaculture, it just seems like applying permaculture knowledge to systems thinking just makes a lot of sense. It feels like common sense to look at what nature does and use what works. And how did we start? We started by just going for it. So I was actually about to go into a bout of depression, sitting in a concrete 20-story building in Germany with my girlfriend at the time, and just couldn't take these pixels in the screen anymore. My brother gets on the phone and calls me and asks, "Hey, you want to do some permaculture at Dad's place in Sweden?" And I said, "Yes, that is the ticket. Get me out of here." So I packed up everything, brought my girlfriend back to Sweden, and we built an outdoor compost toilet. That was the beginning. It's now sitting at my dad's place, which is close to where we have bought this farm where we're at now. It's only 5 minutes away. So it started 5 minutes away from here with a compost toilet. And this was the original camp. We made a deal with my dad. We said, "Hey, can we do some permaculture stuff on your property? We want to live there. We want to plant some gardens. We want to have volunteers." And he said, "Okay, fine, if you help me with the house 1 day a week." And we said, "All right, that's fair if you also give us some food in exchange." So we got food, free living, and could just experiment and play all day, every day. And I went from sitting all day in front of a computer to suddenly, within a span of like 2 weeks, managing chickens, sheep, bees, volunteers, planting gardens, doing forest gardens. We really went head over heels into this. And of course, when you're learning by doing, you make a lot of mistakes. And this picture demonstrates one of those mistakes. You never cut a sheep lying on its back, but you know, you learn quickly and you adapt, and you just go for it. And then of course, mishaps happen. The sheep jump into one of the chicken tractors and you got to fix that. So it was just non-stop doing stuff all the time and learning with your hands and your whole being. And one of our friends gave us some bees, and we tried a top bar hive. And of course, the bees decided to split, and one of the splits sat way up in a spruce tree, and my brother climbed up there and sprayed them into a bucket with some water. Just trying to share some pictures of all the steps that we've been through to get here. And the inspiration at the time was books like these, Michael Pollan's Omnivore's Dilemma, Joel Salatin, Polyface Farms, Gaia's Garden, Permaculture Basics, one of my favorite permaculture basics books at the time. And then my brother, he had a PDC, a permaculture design certificate from Portugal, and he was kind of my guide the first year. And once you start experimenting and learning, you want to invite people who know better. So this is me just going at it with a chainsaw, not really knowing what I'm doing, but trying to build an outdoor kitchen. And then we invited a master from Lithuania, and he's trying to look over my shoulder and make sure I'm not screwing up here. And this kind of, all this playing to learn this knowledge kind of leads you in a direction, and it's individual. So for me, I found that working with wood and trees was really satisfying, and I decided to get an education in cutting trees down. You have to get a driver's license for the chainsaw here in Sweden, and that means that now I can start taking jobs for other people legally, cutting trees down, or getting a hunting license and learning how to provide from things like wild boar that also roam around. We've done experiments in natural building. This is where we're building a rocket mass heater bench, our first one in the outdoor kitchen. I'm not going to go into exactly what all that means, but this shows you the level of playing that we were doing for the first few years. We're playing our way to finding out what it is we want to learn more of and get more education in. This is the second outdoor kitchen we ever built. And this whole mass heater bench here in the picture is heated by an efficient wood burning technique called the rocket mass heater. That was our first outdoor kitchen on my dad's property. You see some happy volunteers. We've just had a hard day's work, and now we're celebrating. And doing all this stuff kind of becomes a magnet and a force of attraction, and people start seeking you out, and they want to learn too. So we start holding courses and workshops. We have harvest festivals and get-togethers, and the media comes and they do a little thing in the newspaper about our little project, and that builds up, and then we get invited to a village called Stjärnsund, which is 20 minutes away, and their gardener was leaving and they needed someone to manage the gardens. They had heard about us in the newspaper, and one thing leads to another, and now we're suddenly managing about 2 hectares of land in the neighboring village. We build a market wagon on wheels on an old caravan trailer, and we start selling some of our vegetables at the local market. We start doing tours and renting out bikes and selling vegetables on a small scale. We start a organization, not for profit, for a permaculture education site, and this is how we had our first meetings. This organization then seeks funding from the European Union to develop this permaculture education site. And that gives us suddenly the means to invest in tools and invite people who are professionals in their field and upgrade the knowledge. We were able to hold workshops in all kinds of different areas: how to sew your own teepee, and a bunch of other themes. And it's also important to mention how fun we were having the whole time by inviting all these volunteers to our space, and you really learn a lot from volunteers. This is one of our volunteers who came when we were in that village, and he's an engineer, and he decided one day to, I'm going to install a stove in my van and turn it into a sauna. So said and done. Within like 2 hours, we had our first sauna in his van. This is one of the teachers we invited to show us timber framing, which turned into a bike stand. And this led to my brother, to the left in this picture, going to Canada and educating himself as a timber framer. So we've kind of put together, in a way, our own college educations by just playing around and finding what we like to do and then expanding on that. This is us playing around with the reciprocal roof, which then led to us building a 10-meter in diameter temple with a tree in the middle. And this is just for fun. This is not for anyone. This is not a job. This is just because we're doing what we want to do. And then we invited a local carpenter to show us how to build a tiny house. And he showed us that it's possible to build with natural local materials and insulate a house with things like sheep wool. And we made a library for our little permaculture group. And this library we were able to rent out on Airbnb for many years and turn a profit pretty quickly. And that money we were able to invest in more plants and trees for the gardens. And that quickly led to me building my own tiny house, just for fun. I thought it would be a nice cozy summer cabin to have in the garden. So you just open the door and there you are. But it turns out that me and my girlfriend turned wife were so happy in this tiny house that we lived there year round for about 3 years. And this is a tiny space. This is 8 square meter floor space. And of course, very cheap rent. So we were starting to grow our own food. We paid about $50 US dollars a month in rent to park our house there. Our costs were extremely low, which enabled us to do what we wanted with our lives, basically, and also save a lot of money. This is what it could look like if you have some friends over for dinner in the tiny house. And then after building my own tiny house, we tore down another caravan. Here's my friend, Peter. He helped me demolish this caravan, and we built a house for my friend. He was sleeping in the living room of a house and he kind of needed his own space. So this was the first workshop that I held, a 5-day workshop in building tiny houses. And suddenly my friend has a home to live in. And it felt fun. Of course, it was very challenging to host a course like this, but it was fun and very popular, and decided to try it again. So we've kind of just been riding that wave, building saunas and houses for people ever since. And now we do it as a form of income as well. This has all led to, I'm going to jump back now to some of the other workshops and guided tours that we've been doing, just to show you that we've really had a successful permaculture group that has inspired, by this point, probably tens of thousands of people in Sweden about permaculture and similar related sustainable living practices. So we do guided tours every summer, and sometimes even in the winter. We have permaculture design certification courses. We have forest gardening courses. We have courses in grafting, in growing mushrooms. Pretty much anything people have a desire to learn, we're able to cater to. Here's a course in using the scythe and actually making hay that way. We've had eco beekeeping courses. Composting. Here's a great example of a terrible compost that we were able to fix during the course. And that led to human manure composting. So since the beginning, you saw the compost toilet at the beginning of this presentation. Since 10 years ago, we've been returning our human manure to the soil through composting. Sometimes we let it stand for 2 years in one of these human manure containers, and we return it to the land as a form of regenerative soil building. The gardens, we work heavily with no dig mulch gardening, and this is what it looked like when we first arrived at this place, Stjärnsund. We covered the whole area with leaves. All you need is löv. Löv is leaves in Swedish. And with these leaves, about 30 centimeters of leaves that we were donated from the church. They don't want their leaves. They collect them all in a miniature tractor and drive them over to us and dump them in the gardens. So we were able to kickstart this heavy clay soil with this heavy mulch. And then on top of the leaves, we learned that it's smart to put some straw or something to hold the leaves down so they don't blow away. And this is what it looks like from the air. Pretty ambitious at this. I mean, we're doing everything at once here. We're trying to garden on a pretty large scale for being this many people. We're building tiny houses. We're holding courses. We're just going crazy. And that's a great phase to go through. And then eventually you find your limits and what you're most interested in. And we've learned to focus more and scale down to in Swedish we say lagom, which means just right, the level that's not too much and not too little. We hosted the Nordic Permaculture Festival. I forget exactly what year it was, but we had about 400 visitors over 3 days come and camp on the local soccer field and attend courses and workshops and great music for a few days. And this is what it looks like, the whole place from the air. To the left, you see the monoculture, which is a barren desert where they spray glyphosate and all the goodies. And then on the right side, you see the cultural part, lots of tents, lots of interaction between people. You see teepees, you see gardens. From the air like this, it becomes very clear the contrast between the different ways of managing land, approach to land management. What would you rather have, the left or the right? Of course, it's an oversimplification, but it makes a point. This is the market wagon we built, and we had a volunteer drop in one day, and she's just like, "Do you have any paint? I'm going to paint this." And there she goes. A couple hours later, she had the whole side of the market wagon painted as a beautiful owl with carrots coming out of it. So we've tried things like bringing vegetables and plants to market. We've tried renting out electric bikes. We've tried the bicycle smoothie machine, where we sell smoothies that are freshly made on the bicycle at the local market. We've had a lot of fun, and we've reached out to a lot of people. As we've done this for maybe 3 or 4 years, but over time we realized we're not really making any money, and it's taking a lot of time to really prepare these things. So we've also stopped selling. We now homestead more for ourselves. Learning all of this stuff has given opportunities to share what we've learned worldwide. This is a site in Iceland where I met my friend Peter, and we built a outdoor kitchen and festival site during 10 days in Iceland. For me, this was a paid job to come and host a couple of workshops and build this place up for the Nordic Permaculture Festival in Iceland. So it's really nice to take all this knowledge that we've played to learn and then upgraded our knowledge, and then being able to see the world in a very meaningful way and share the knowledge and inspiration with others worldwide. It's also led to things like ecotourism. Groups of people come any time of the year. In the winter, we have a lot of Dutch people or German people who like to go ice skating or take selfies on the ice. And in the summer, of course, it's lots of other activities and garden tours. The media has found us lots of times. We've been on TV in multiple occasions, and I don't know how many different newspapers and magazines. And this is all, to me, this is a great way of inspiring those people that you otherwise don't reach. You reach all age categories and all kinds of people throughout the land that you otherwise would never get in touch with. And then it was time for us to finally get our own place. We were kind of outgrowing our area in this kind of community where we were in Quenchen before. And we were looking for a place to buy for a few years, and finally we settled on this place, which is only 20 minutes from there, pretty close to my parents, pretty close to my family, close enough so we can make a smooth transition from one place to the next. And we could just drive our tiny houses over here on the dirt roads. So we moved 4 tiny houses on wheels to the place. It was our house, the guest house, the sauna, and the chicken coop. And this is what it looked like when we bought the place. Just a clear cut with young trees. We immediately started gardening. The first thing we did is run out there and start planting bushes before we even moved there. And we start covering the ground again, mulching it. So this is now at the place where this is a humble habitat now. And this coming season will be our 3rd season here. So everything is still very new and fresh for us. This is one way that we propagate plants. So it's been really valuable to have started forest gardens in the previous places and be able to take some of that material with us and kind of kickstart this process here where we are. So we have a little nursery. We have grafted trees. Here's an example of grafting pear trees onto rowan. So we graft nice varieties of pears that we find around the area, and we graft them onto wild growing rowan trees here on our 13-hectare piece of land. That means that over time, we should be able to have a huge edible landscape, especially along the roads where people walk. So we're looking at approximately a 1 kilometer long foodscape over time is the vision. This is during the first ecosystem restoration camp. I'm showing one of the grafted pear trees. And this is an example of a small guild. So we're not just working with trees, we're also working with ground cover plants, and we call them guilds, multiple plants that work together in the same area without competing or hopefully benefiting each other. And they're not just benefiting each other, they're also benefiting the insects and the biodiversity of the area. So we do everything in our power to help out these little guys. We try to have flowers as long as possible for the whole growing season. Early flowers and late flowers. We allow a lot of weeds to stay weeds. We let things stand and dry over winter so bugs have a place to live. There's a lot of little tricks you can do to promote biodiversity that otherwise you wouldn't see in a more kept garden space. Of course, it attracts not just insects. And we start planting some pretty serious agroforestry systems. This is in one of our rows of walnuts that we're planting. You get a feeling that the kind of stuff we're doing here in this place, like we've bought a 13-hectare farm. We see this as a lifelong project. If you plant walnuts, you're pretty serious about the future of this place. I mean, we're going to be lucky if we get many harvests before we pass on and have to leave it to the next generation. But someone has to start, right? This is the house in summer. In front of the house, you see a planted apple tree named a doggies. Along the road, we have a long and narrow piece of land, and along a large part of our land there is a small country road with some traffic, especially during when people are going to and from work at the neighboring village. So we're planting this forest actually along the whole road to kind of create a buffer zone between the highway and the garden space or the rest of the area. So over time, here we're planting native species, mostly spruce, pine, and letting other young trees come up like alder, and we even have some larch, which is not native to this place, but it is here now. So we're planting a serious windbreak, noise break, privacy screen, and this will also create a microclimate. So even though this is growing zone 4 or 5, we should be able to grow things that work in zone 3 here over time. We also have a lot of hazel coming here naturally, and now we just have to manage it, give it more sunlight, maybe thin it out a little bit, and create more of a productive nut orchard just by managing a little bit what's already there. We have mulberries, we have cherries, we have Saskatoon? Peaches. Now this is a zone 3 example, but peaches actually work here, and This is a Baltic variety. Huge, delicious peaches in Sweden. Who would have thought? We love it when we find things like snakes and reptiles, and we like to give them places to be and hide and maybe eat some of the voles that otherwise get into the garden. This is frog eggs in our beaver dam. And the beaver dam is soon going to be 3 years old, and already we've seen loads of frog eggs. And last year I saw a bunch of little fish swimming around. So the aquatic life in this place is really starting to take off, and it's going to be really exciting to see what happens over time. Some pictures from harvest. So we grow a lot of our food. We're not 100% self-sustaining, but we do eat mostly our own vegetables. When we go shopping, it's, you know, it's the luxury items mostly. It's coffee, spices, milk products. So we have very low living costs still. This was during the ecosystem camp that you saw the video from earlier. And already we've been able to start sharing our garden space with visitors and doing paid tours. It's an interesting feeling having a place where you get paid to stay at home and show people how you live. It's actually it's quite satisfying. American blueberries. We of course we have a lot of the wild ones, but we like to grow the high bush American blueberries as well. We have ever-bearing strawberries, and you see some honeyberry there also. They have lots of other names. But grape leaves, blackberries, plums, and making apple cider is a big thing that we do. We don't have so many apples ourselves yet, but we go and get the neighbors' apples off the ground and press a few 100 liters of cider. We make a vinegar, we make juice, and of course let it just ferment itself. So this is a terrible way of, like, if you look at the amount of hours we put in, and if we try to count that in capitalistic terms of how much we should have gotten paid for each hour, then these tomatoes are worth a ridiculous amount of money. But they are worth a lot to us. We've grown them ourselves. We know what went into them. We know where they're going. We know the entire cycle, and you can really, of course, taste the difference. And it's about quality of life and enjoying the higher nutrition and everything. There's just so many benefits and values that cannot be measured in money. Of course, we combine this with foraging, mushrooms, berries, hunting, fishing. And you have to preserve the food. We have built a root cellar, and we also now luckily have access to a freezer at our neighbor's house. If you don't have a freezer, it's a lot more work. You have to dry things, you have to smoke them, can them. Lots and lots of work. And lots of satisfaction. And this is where we do the cooking, or my wife mostly. So it all ends up here sooner or later in the tiny house. Having bees, we only have a couple hives. It's enough to keep us in honey for years at a time. So we run everything at a small, just right scale. So we don't have to sell anything, and sometimes we have enough to give a little away. We've tried animals of all kinds. Most recently, we did rabbits, and they're great. I mean, they're cute, they're adorable, and they taste good. This is our volunteer who's just learning to take care of the hides after harvesting a couple of rabbits. They can be cooked in many ways. I hope there's not too many vegans out there. We've got some local fish right out of the lake. So this is what breakfast can look like if you're a homesteader and the season is late summer. We tried turkeys. And what we're sticking with is chickens. Chickens are our favorite so far. So everything else has come and gone, but the chickens are still here. They help us in so many ways, and of course they give delicious eggs and meat. And that's a beautiful pickled egg right there. This is a breakfast to be. These are grown oyster mushrooms on the left, our own onions, jalapenos, tomatoes, and eggs. So I'd also like to explain more about how this tiny house project has developed. We live, this is all a holistic concept where we try to live as locally and build local resources as possible. We've now got our own sawmill, so we're able to either take down trees that people want to get rid of anyways, or ask some neighbors with large amounts of forest if we can buy some trees from them. And we pull the sawmill out into the woods, if there are any woods, because this is what it looks like almost everywhere around us now. This is what forestry in Sweden looks like. And this is actually, believe it or not, a relatively good example. You can see like 10 trees still standing. So the way we build is very, very efficient. Like it takes about 3 trees total to build one house. And you don't have to cut down the whole forest, and you can make a pretty sizable profit off of your forest without cutting it all down. And we're trying to prove that and demonstrate that in very many ways. You can sell a tree over and over and over again while it's still standing without having to cut it down. We're also involved in these local groups. Here we're learning from one of Sweden's best forest guys on how to identify red listed species so we can save the small pieces of forest that are still standing in Sweden. We have less than 3% forest, natural forest in Sweden. A lot of people don't realize that. I mean, we have a very powerful message outwards that says we have sustainable forestry in Sweden. It's simply not true. So there's a really big growing movement now for trying to save what's left of the forest and manage forestry as more sustainably in the future. And this is a part of that. We take down a few trees. This is where we're at our neighbor's place. They had an old spruce hedge that nobody ever bothered to cut, so it got huge. And now they realized, oh, we don't get any sun, so we want to take down these trees. And we were able to take them down and build houses out of them, both for ourselves and for customers. This is us milling our own lumber. And sometimes we even get fancier wood. This is an elm tree. Beautiful stuff to work with. And it's key to our lives to share what we learn with other people in different ways. And we do that by holding tiny house workshops, usually 5 days long. People get together, and most people have never held a hammer before. And after 5 days, they often feel like, wow, I can build something. And the proof of that is in the pudding, as it were. About 50% of all the course participants have actually built something themselves after one of my courses. So that's a really fun way to share the knowledge. And this has, of course, led to the next step, which is people ordering houses in advance. I design them together with the client, and then they're shipped off to different places here in Sweden. And it's nice to see these little pieces of the forest from around here being used around Sweden as little homes. And this is our own home. We currently live in our second tiny house that we've built. It has a greenhouse on the side now. In the greenhouse, we have a little shower. We've got firewood sheds. So the actual house itself is on a military truck. And some more interior shots. But of course, you can do a lot with wood. Pretty soon here, it's going to be time to tap the birches and the maples again. A wonderful source of nutrient-rich drink is how we use it. You can also use it in ferments and brews. Firewood, we use, of course, the offcuts from building as firewood, and we also make our own. And if we're feeling lazy, we buy firewood as well. So being off-grid means you have to figure out how to heat your space without using electricity, because we do not have enough sun. We don't have almost any sun in the winter. Between November and January, it's dark. As luck would have it, trees are the solution for that. They store the sunlight that comes in the summertime in a dense carbon-rich package that can be easily transported and moved around. Super high tech. So we use firewood. We also grow mushrooms, as I said. This is one of the workshops we had in growing mushrooms using the log inoculation method. And it can look like this when they're done. Then they just rest, and for the next 5 to 6 years, we hope to get mushrooms pretty much without any further work. This is one of the logs fruiting. This is a nameko mushroom, a Japanese mushroom. These are wine caps. Paul Stamets, the world's best mushroom guru, arguably, has really recommends growing wine caps in garden beds. And we've tried it, and it works great. They proliferate and multiply, and it just works amazingly well. So already the first season last year, we had bushels and bushels of these mushrooms popping out everywhere. And people always ask, so I'm gonna answer before you ask, what do you do in the winter? Well, besides freezing and making lots of fires, we sometimes have volunteers, actually. This was one of our first volunteers. Due to a misunderstanding, she showed up early, so we decided to have a good time on the ice. Shovel snow. It's always a good thing. Sometimes you got to clear some snow off the solar panels, scrape the ice off the toilet seat. And this is our cozy sleeping area. You'll notice a large screen TV on the left. We do lots of movie watching in the darker times of the year. Or why not take the time to do some hobby projects? This is one I'm working on currently. It's an electrified dirt bike. I like to make things go fast and noiselessly. And this is all charged by the sun, so it's a great way to ride around on little sunbeams. Or you can do forestry and make more boards for the next season. We also share our space for people in different ways. Most recently, we had a circus here. My brother is part of a circus group, and they have this video on YouTube. If you want to check it out, I could really recommend it. You see the title here on the bottom left, A Tribute to Snow. Really beautiful performance, and we had lots of visitors here at Humble Habitat. It's a great way to brighten up the dark time of the year. And of course, being outside and just enjoying the little sun that does come is really important in the winter. And when we're not working, we're playing. We work hard and we play hard. And there's so many things to enjoy, especially summertime, of course, in Sweden. Quadruple hammock setup, why not? Street session. Slacklining is getting big over here. This is a practice session over a creek in our local, just across the road from Humble Habitat. And this was making biochar. And of course, spending time around a fire or in the sauna is what we do most on our free time around here. So I know this has been intense, lots and lots of pictures. I wanted to get through them in a relatively efficient manner. So that's it for me. If you want to get in touch with us, these are some contact infos you can jot down, and I'll let you guys attack me with questions, I guess, at some point, if you like.
Thank you so much, David, for bringing us with you on the journey. It's incredible what you achieved with your family and the community. It's unbelievable. It's so super diverse, and also the plainness of it is really really nice to see as well. Brings me joy, at least. Yeah. I think there are some questions. Maybe you can stop sharing your screen and we can see what kind of questions are popping up. Does anyone has a question already? I did see some in the chat. There was, let's start with Michael. Michael, would you like to share your question?
Yes. Wondering if your great
Michael,
Google called tours. Oh, are we too loud? Not loud enough.
Could you try to ask your question again? The internet connection was not super stable, but I feel that it's better now.
Okay, wondering if you use hugel cultures, biomass gardens, pile up.
Yeah, we have done lots of experiments with hugel cultures, and we find that unless you are very careful on how you design them from the beginning, they become pretty difficult to manage. They're a great way of getting organic matter and carbon into the soil, and they can work really well in certain applications, but I wouldn't use them for just anything.
Okay. We have really here because we weed and mulching our hugelkulturs. Yeah, so I'm glad you're trying it out. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Michael. There was another question in the chat asking about the monoculture that we saw on the image. What do they grow on there next to the village?
In Sweden, as a landowner with fields, you're actually required to rotate crops, so it's different every year. But usually it's mostly grain of some kind. Sometimes it's canola, or sometimes they'll let it go to fallow for a year. But mostly grains.
Yeah. All right. And then a question from Leanne Erickson. Was the beaver dam built by the beavers?
I like that question. Yes, it was built by the beavers, and that's actually what changed our minds when we saw the place. When we saw the beaver dam, we're like, wow, there's so much water here, there's so much happening, this is gonna start changing things in the biological structure of the place. And we decided to buy it after seeing that. And I may or may not have been there and helped them out a little bit since then.
Nice. How many beavers, how large is the beaver family? Do you have an idea?
We've seen what we think is a mama, a papa, and a baby. And now they're kind of moving up and down the stream between the neighbors' fields and here. So it's hard to know exactly, but probably a family that's growing.
Nice, nice. Jonathan, you have a question for David.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, but my question really is, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
I put it in the chat. My question really is around building codes. You know, I've met with our building commission even before I purchased the property, and you know, there's kind of an unspoken kind of nod and handshake that, you know, as long as you don't get any complaints, it's kind of anything goes in a rural area. But I noticed that you're in a less than, you know, you have neighbors. I'm just wondering, you know, what are the building code issues in Sweden, in particular around size of homes and self-built homes, as well as composting toilets? And if you've run into any issues with municipalities there.
Excellent question. There's a lot you can dive into there, but basically you can say that it's the same rules that apply for RVs or caravans. If you want to park any mobile home of any kind anywhere, you need to check with the municipality, and usually you have 6 weeks you can stay as a grace period. Beyond that, you have to apply for a building permit. There's lots of ways to approach that. Our way was to buy this property, which is zoned as a agricultural parcel, which means you're allowed to build certain structures without building permits, as long as they're needed for your business on the site. So, of course, until we get official rules for things like tiny houses, we're trying to kind of sneak around in the legal gray zones, and above all, not piss any neighbors off. So that's still the most important thing in here. And for composting toilets, we have kind of a culture here of summer cabins where people officially use composting toilets as the only toilets that they have. And it's allowed in most municipalities. You're supposed to tell the municipality that you're composting it yourself, unless you book a specific latrine pickup service from the municipality. So there's different ways of solving it, but it's not illegal here.
Good to know. Does that answer your question, Jonathan?
Yeah, it's extremely interesting to me when we are, talking to people who are looking for land themselves and the need for really good understanding of zoning and permitting before you, venture into a project. Our land is actually zoned as timber production zone. And so we're entitled to a single family residency, but we're also entitled to work camps. And so we're functioning basically as a work camp where people who are working the timber area, can reside there for an intermittent time. We also have the zoning in our entitlements for environmental education and camping and recreation. And so, we feel like, we have some pretty strong leniency there. And I noticed like John Liu is in Marin County right now, where I used to reside for 35 years. And I think it's much, much more difficult to, launch these projects in areas like that. Whereas, you got to find the right location. So I'm appreciating your wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. There is first a question in the chat. I do see your hand up, Michael. It's from Gina Angiola. Did you have to deal with much interpersonal turmoil? Or if so, how did you handle the situation?
In the second place in the presentation, Stund, there was kind of a community setting and kind of a tight-knit group of people as the inner circle, and in the outer circle is kind of still a tight-knit, but people who don't see each other as often. But there's a lot of people in a small area that kind of, in some loose way, are part of a community. And that means a lot of people having a lot of different opinions, and the decision-making processes were not very functional, I would say, and there was a lot of turmoil. We've tried a lot of different systems, such as sociocracy and different kinds of systems for decision-making, but in the end, we found that direct democracy is simple and works the best, most efficient, as long as people are more or less on the same page. So, but that was one of the reasons why we wanted to kind of find our own place also, is to avoid the need to have 3 2-hour meetings a week and not get anywhere in these decision-making processes. And then even when decisions were made, they could be turned around or not talked about in a negative way afterwards. So it's it feels kind of freeing in a way to not have to deal with that so much anymore, to be honest.
I can understand. Thank you, David. There's another question from Patrick. Do you ever do those tiny houses workshop for English speakers? And are there trout in that stream across the road? So two questions.
Yes, I haven't seen any trout, but I have people who say that there are trout in the stream. I hope there are. There's definitely trout in the nearby lakes, but they're not natural. But still a delicious treat if you manage to hook one. As far as the, what was the other question?
About your tiny house workshop, if it's for English speakers.
Yeah, we accommodate English speakers at all of the courses. It's no problem.
Nice, thank you. Michael, you have a question.
A reference and a question. And David, your tiny house workshops really remind me of an event called Bioconstruyendo in Argentina. It's the natural building movement for South America. 250, 300 people, 200 people, all building natural buildings together. It's just super stupendous and fun. And they make YouTube videos. So I typed into chat how to spell their name. Really fun to watch. And the question is, what about this? Tell us more about the Nordic Permaculture Festival or the event you have on the Nordic permaculture.
Yeah, thanks for that tip. The Nordic Permaculture Festival is a wandering festival that goes from country to country every year. So I believe Peter can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's in Finland this coming summer. And then it, yes, got it right. Then it will go somewhere else. And it's a really good concept where the permaculture organizations of Scandinavia have gotten together, and every time there is a festival, they make sure they save a little pot of money for the next festival. So the next people to host the festival, they don't have to worry about all that. They're already all set up with the money and the systems, and they can just put it all together. It's a really beautiful permaculture event, and it's been going on for, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years now.
Nice, exciting. There is a question from Faye, and she's curious about the forest management, if it's if you're doing it sustainably, as you're also using wood for fuel.
Yeah, so I would argue that in a place like this, with the population density of this area, it makes a lot of sense to use wood for fuel. Of course, you also want to make sure that you have efficient wood burning and can store the heat. So it's all part of a more holistic view on energy in general. But it does become a net zero CO2 game if you look at it over the long run. It can even be regenerative if you use things like rocket stoves and coppice trees for firewood instead of chopping them down completely. So there's lots of ways to do it beyond sustainably. And the way we manage the forest on our own land, I would say, is yeah, it's pretty daring if you compare it to the neighbors who basically just run the clear-cut model as often as they can. We're allowing it to rewild and diversify and be a never-ending continuity of natural development. But that's just on our little 13-hectare piece. So we're also involved in these other organizations that I mentioned quickly, who are working to save forests and working for, also on a economic market, sell sustainably managed wood products. So we're working on different levels to promote sustainable forestry.
Thanks, David. I'm also curious to know more how you can be more efficient in burning wood. You mentioned something about stoves that you can use, or?
Yeah, so really important is having a clean and hot enough combustion in the fireplace so you don't have a lot of extra gases that become the greenhouse gases and unnecessarily polluting. As well as not getting as much heat in your space. And the most efficient stove known to man, as far as I know, is a rocket stove. It's just a way of introducing a lot of oxygen into the burn, so you reach super high temperatures and get a really high combustion rate from the firewood. It's equally important to choose the right kind of firewood and really dry firewood to have a good, clean combustion. So again, it all becomes a holistic thing. You have to prepare your firewood 2 years in advance if you want good, clean, dry firewood. It's a long-term cycle, and it pays to pay attention to the details. So you could really, Aproveccio Learning Institute has done a lot of research on rocket stoves. There's lots of different kinds. You can even make them really big and beautiful with or without dragon heads. You can have any kind of design you like, and also be able to enjoy a beautiful fire at the same time. It's a great way of burning wood, and there's lots of different variations on them. So they can be used for cooking, they can be used for making biochar, they can be used for making all kinds of stuff, or just for heating your home.
Thank you. Interesting. Barbara has a question. When does growing season start and end in your region?
That depends on your level of ambition and how much, like what systems you have in place. It's of course possible to grow year round in a well-lit, heated greenhouse, which could cost you a lot of energy if it's poorly designed. But we grow our vegetables from May is when it really gets going, so it's pretty late. But we have intense short growing season. We have up to 20 hours of sunlight in the peak of the summer, so we get a lot of sun hours in a short time. So May to October. October is when it ends. Yeah.
Thanks. And Leanne is asking, so you're essentially living as a family now, or how many people are in your current circle of decision making?
That is somewhat varying on the time of the year and what's going on. But yes, we are living as a family. My sister just bought the neighbor house, so we live very close to another family. And then my brother lives just down from there. So it's an extended family setting now with 3 different units. And each unit can have their own activities or volunteers at any given time. So we could have, sometimes in the summer, we have a lot more people more regularly. And not everyone is involved in all projects. So the people involved in the projects are the ones making the decisions usually. But it is me and my wife who are the chief decision makers for simplicity's sake.
Nice. Barbara has a question. What about electricity in winter? When you have too little sun, how do you manage? What about water for cooking and washing?
So I didn't have time to show you all the pictures I wanted, even though I showed so many. But one of them, we have found a well here. We've actually found several wells on the land, but one of them is close enough that we can go and just get water in the winter with a little solar powered pump. In the summer, we have it set up so it pumps up to a water tower, and we have gravity fed water all summer, so we don't have to do any extra work. Then we run plumbing in the summer. But in the winter, we have to once or twice a week go and get water from the well in jugs. And electricity, that's a tough nut to crack when you're off grid. It really is. So the system that we've landed in, I've tried really hard to make water power from the beaver dam using turbine that I've built myself in a couple of different versions. But I just can't squeeze enough power out of it to really charge anything serious. So we have to run a gas-powered generator about 1 hour a day to charge our battery bank in the winter. So that's between November and the end of January.
Thanks, David. Michael, you have your hand raised. Do you have a question?
I just want to say, I know I'm going to get a reputation as being a real loudmouth, talks a lot. Hey, but David, I have this book, Restoration Forestry, I want to send you, that I put out. And so you could email me later, or just, that'll tell you how to contact me if you don't have it. But I would like to mail you a copy for free. And this is a message for John and Kath and Inge and Faye, is that I would like to give copies of the book to other camps, but I can't really afford to give away 10 books that are worth $40 each and then pay the $20 shipping. So what I would like to propose is that I would like to accumulate books to send to restoration camps. I'm really good at finding good books at a good price, and I would like to start a service for camps of rounding up good books for them, but we'll need to talk to John and Hughes about that. How can we finance me sending books to camps that would be good? So anyway, that's the first time it's been announced, but it's an idea I have.
Nice idea, Michael. I definitely like it. And also Liora and Andrew from Kaya University, who's working now on the knowledge platform as well. They might be interesting maybe to have a conversation with you about this idea. So yeah, let's keep in touch.
Thanks,
Okay,
Michael.
thank you.
That's great.
Yeah, that is great. Thank you. Are there any more questions in the chat? Let me see. I think not, but I do have, I'm really curious because you could really tell that you had so much fun in what you were doing and learning. And do you see that as a key factor for the success that you had?
Absolutely. I think the process of transitioning from a non-sustainable life to a sustainable one should also be fun for it to be truly sustainable. So finding ways of making it fun is always a plus, of course, and it also attracts more people if they see that you're having fun. So
For sure. I think it's a very important one. I see Becky has a question if you considered wind power.
yeah, sadly, we're at the bottom of a valley below, like we're not even coming up to halfway up trees. We're in a zone where wind power simply doesn't really work. Sadly, we'd have to have like a 50-meter tall wind turbine, and it's just not feasible.
Yeah, makes sense. It does keep the leaves on the ground. Less wind.
Yeah.
Are there any last questions for David? If so, you still have the chance to ask them. And otherwise, I want to thank you, David, for giving us this inspiring story and journey of you and your family and to all the entire community. Yeah, it's amazing. I think we are all very inspired, and the details that you shared with us is really helpful. So thank you so much. And yeah, I hope to see you all again next month. And for now, I want to wish you all a pleasant evening or a very nice day.
Thanks so much, guys.
Everyone, thank you. Bye-bye.